Hello, my friends. Mandy here with a quick invitation for you to join the Patreon for our show. We've recently switched up some of the benefits, including a new monthly workbook to go along with all the incredible content you're getting on the show. It's a quote yourself through grief kind of a vibe, and for only $10 a month, it is a wholly worthy and affordable way to invest in your own healing process without the commitment of a full coaching relationship. Learn more at patreon.com/Mandy Capehart, and of course, the link is in the show notes. Thank you as always for being here. Now let's get into the good stuff. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 113, titled Internal Realignment with Lauren Leduc. If you knew a pathway to radical wholeness existed, would you take it? My guest this week is holistic practitioner and yoga instructor Lauren Leduc, and today we are discussing the energy body. On this show, we talk about our holistic selves, mind, heart, body, and spirit, but we often incorporate the energetic self into those places without isolating what it means and how it can help us. I'm really excited for you to hear her wisdom and experience and start asking yourself the question of how you might incorporate a knowledge or openness to the energetic self into your own grief work. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I am here today with a very different type of guest, and I'm so excited to hear her story and get some insight from her. The lovely Lauren Leduc is here with us today. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lauren is the owner of True Love Yoga Studio, and she is a brilliant mind around the holistic world of chakra wholeness and just taking a step back from our maybe cognitive or physical selves in the world and taking everything in as the whole and assessing where we're at and what we need from there. So I am probably doing a very poor job of describing your work. Why don't you speak to it a little bit and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, first, again, thanks for having me on. And when you first asked me, I was like, I wonder, what I have to contribute to this particular podcast. But I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation today. And yes, I'm a yoga teacher and studio owner. I'm also a new author. My book just came out as of this airing, December 1st. And, besides the yoga, which in that I really focus on like trauma-informed yoga and creating really accessible opportunities for people. Um, I love working with the energy body, and we can go into what that even is, and the chakra system, which is this energetic system and really like holistic way of looking at not only the human body, but the other things that make us who we are. And I'm also really passionate about connecting women, especially, but all people, with self love and this realization of wholeness. And I do that through work with the sacred feminine, which is um, it doesn't really have to do with men or women. Sacred feminine is like one half of our inner divinity in a way. And it's kind of the half that is the shadow side. It's not as celebrated in our culture. And it's oftentimes parts of ourselves that we need to bring into the light and love on. So, yeah, there's so much more detail I think to get into, but essentially, those are the things I'm really passionate about. And I work with this system of chakras through my writing and through yoga, through energy healing, and through intuitive work and coaching as well.
You said so many of the phrases that I use in my grief work. That is exactly why I wanted you to be here, because that realization of wholeness, even that phrase, really identifies what we pursue on restorative grief in through my coaching practice and even through this podcast. Because especially when we're grieving, and I'd love to hear if you have any like grief stories you feel comfortable sharing with as you how you maybe you even got into this work, but that holistic part of us, that we are heart, mind, body, spirit, all interconnected, not disparate parts, really becomes a challenge to believe when we're grieving and when we have traumatic events that begin to define everything as we go on. It tones down that energetic body and that awareness around what we really contain and carry. So I think I told you in our off air earlier in our conversations about how the idea of chakras and the energy body really fascinates me, because as a somatic practitioner, we do a lot of felt sensations, but we don't talk about those that particular wisdom because I'm not educated in it. So can you just kind of briefly describe it for people who are listening?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I think it goes hand in hand with somatic work, really, because once I go into describing them, we can talk about how you can feel into these centers as well. So they're not just some esoteric, like, I hate the word woo woo, but kind of like woo woo thing. They're things that
Yeah.
you can actually like feel into in your own system, which is one of the reasons like I love working with it and helping people kind of attune to their own bodies and intuition and all that. So this is kind of a yogic way of looking at the body. And there are a lot of different energy systems, particularly in different Eastern traditions. So this is just one system, and it's the one I happen to know most about. So in this system, there is what is called prana, or life force energy. And it's kind of like the force in Star Wars. It's kind of like what is all around us and what is moving, what is all around us. So in our body, which would be the physical body, but also like the aura around it, there would be what are called nadis, Nadis. And nadis are the channels, or you can think of like highways for this energy to flow. So there's lots and lots of them in the body, and everywhere two of them intersect form what's called a chakra or chakra, Chakra. And where they intersect forms a whirling vortex of this life force energy. And these vortexes hold information within them. So there would be many, many, many within the body, but typically when people are talking about them, they're talking about the 7 major ones. So to go into that, um, there are 3 main energy channels or nadis that run along the spine. The middle one is called Sushumna. It's this kind of clear middle channel, again, aligns with the spine. To the right of that is Pingala, which is the quote unquote masculine channel, or more solar, more structured, more linear, more penetrating energy. To the left of that is Ida, which is the feminine channel. It's more lunar, more cyclical, more receptive, more cool. And these two channels cross over Sushumna 7 times, and everywhere they cross forms a major chakra or chakra. So typically when you're hearing people talk about these are the ones that they're referring to. And each of them holds different information about who we are. So different qualities, different experiences, different emotions, even different parts of like our development as humans. And they go from the lowest, which would be aligned with like the base of the spine or the tailbone, which is the root chakra, which holds like your connection to the earth. It holds like your physical body, your safety. I talk a lot about like the nervous system with this one too, because that's like how we feel safety in the body. And it goes all the way up through these different hierarchies, I suppose, although I wouldn't really call it a hierarchy. It's more of a holistic system that works together to the crown chakra. And that's at the crown of the head. And that is your spiritual connection. And then there's a lot of stuff in between, and it's where we hold all our stuff. So when I was talking about, that it being really a wonderful, I think, base of knowledge to have when you're doing somatic work. Like when I'm working with clients, we will tune into these specific energy centers and see what's there. And oftentimes we'll even talk to them, we'll get information from them that helps them along their healing or helps them feel more of a sense of wholeness within themselves.
You described that in such an approachable and simple way. Beautifully, beautifully put. Thank you so much. I was furiously writing notes because I haven't spent a ton of time learning about it yet, but I also have not encountered someone who can break it down very simply in a way that it doesn't feel, like you said, woo woo and unapproachable. It feels very, oh, this is just very grounding information about what's going on within me, because we are all energy. We are all at any given time little tiny atoms all in motion. I like to say your skin is holding you together, but your skin is also moving all the time.
Mm.
And so I think being aware of those energy centers, like you described, is such a crucial part of knowing, what am I carrying? What am I embodying? And how am I going to use that information to move differently toward a more holistic, regulated, grounded sense of myself? So I'm curious, what is it that brought you into recognizing, okay, this work, yoga work, all of this is a really beautiful way of existing? What brought you to this world?
Yeah, I think similarly to a lot of people, I came from a place of pain really and seeking healing. So I was diagnosed with anorexia and like depression and anxiety around the age 17. Before that, super high achieving kid, very much like trying to fit into this good girl role religiously in my family, in school and extracurriculars, fitting into, specific ways that you should show up as a woman in the world, at least from what I could see in society. And I crashed and burned. It was too much for me to handle. Um, so that was a big grieving period for me, actually, not grieving a person in my life, but grieving like my sense of what I thought the world was and who I was. And it brought me into this, I guess, long journey. I don't think it's over, but like definitely a 10-year period of self-discovery. Um, this was about 22 years ago. So I've also had a period after that of like, okay, I'm going to embody all of what I've learned and then teach, right? So there was a lot of trial and error in this period. I still struggled a lot through this whole time, which kept me seeking. So I feel, as hard as that was, I feel super grateful for it too, because it woke me up in a way and brought me to where I am now for sure. So in this period of healing, I tried different schooling, dropped out a bunch, didn't really know how to heal myself, but I was drawn to different things. So uh, I was introduced like to different spiritual practices and cultural practices that I really had zero exposure to growing up, and that opened my mind a bit. I also tried different like psychedelics in my early 20s, and that opened me up to this like energy. And I do attribute some of those experiences to giving me glimpses of like where I would be today, meaning helping me understand what now means, like what is this present moment, helping me understand who I am, like not who I am as in like my body or my experiences, but like truly who am I? Like what is this soul? Um, After that, I started trying to meditate. There weren't nearly as many accessible resources at that point in time than there are now. So I would sit and do my own visualizations. And one of them was I would sit and imagine like white light pouring through my head and coming out of my body and like in the rainbow or spectrum of colors like a prism. And it just felt really good. And it wasn't until a couple years later when I did a Reiki training. I didn't really know what Reiki was, but I knew that I needed to heal spiritually in some way, and I was willing to try almost anything at that point. And I was introduced to this chakra system through that. And each chakra is assigned with like a different color, and it's the rainbow colors, it's the spectrum. So I thought it was really cool, that that was something that I had intuited earlier in my life. A few years later, I got to really focus in a more grounded way in my healing. I had moved all around and I moved back home to where I live now, Kansas City, and I had support from my family to really like dive in deep. So I did neurotherapy, which is like a trauma therapy where they hooked me up to electrodes and the nurse showed me like the first day, okay, these are your brain waves. And basically you're in fight or flight. And it really like blew my mind because I just felt more or less normal at that point. It was my baseline, was being in my sympathetic nervous system. So I healed through that therapy a bit, but I attribute a lot of it to yoga, and not just the physical, although it's such a huge part of it, but definitely the breath, the energy, and then certainly diving into the philosophy over the last decade or so. Um, so yeah, this kind of, I don't know, some people say like dark night of the soul. I don't know if that's what it was for me. It felt like a long period of time and felt like, an unfolding that happened over a long period of time as well, led me to these practices that have helped me love myself and have also helped me take the things that I thought were weaknesses and transmute them into my strengths and into my service. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, my friend, that answers my question and
Yeah.
then some. It's such
Mm.
a transformative process that you described. And I love that. I know it doesn't sound nice to say, I love that it took 20 years to get to this point, and you acknowledge, like, I am on a path still, because I think that's one of the biggest things with grief work, right? Is the society around us says, okay, 3 to 4 weeks and you should be good. Our employers say 3 to 4 days and come back and you'll feel realigned with everything in your life. When the reality is, we might be in a state of sympathetic or dorsal collapse in our nervous systems for such a sustained period of time that we have no recognition of what an open, relaxed nervous system feels like. It's
Mm.
astounding how easily we accept that unease or that dis-ease in our bodies without ever questioning it, because we're never really invited into a space where we can question it. So yeah, of course we don't are grateful for our losses, but at the same time we recognize, like you said, that they can be transmuted into something more meaningful and intentional that brings us full circle and really opens us up to more possibilities.
I absolutely agree. And I'll add to that, we're living in a very unique time where have people had grief, had people had anxiety, depression forever? Yes, probably, but it's like we're swimming in it. So how are we supposed to recognize it when it's all around us and it's all we know? I felt very much that way. So a lot of my work too has been like cultural critique and then deprogramming from that and like learning what actually is natural and how do we like as humans individually and collectively find peace, I suppose, and beyond peace, I guess acceptance and grounding. And I don't know what I would maybe call like our natural state that it feels like we're so removed from right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think that what you said about deprogramming from a previous experience, right? I would love to just address that really quickly, because to use the phrase woo woo as well, I think this conversation can really freak people out,
Mm.
especially when we're grieving. And with grief work, we tend to move as slowly as possible, like very carefully. How regulated are you? How intense can we have a conversation, or the practices we do? I would love for you to share what you would say to the person who might be a little cynical right now.
Yeah, I would say that you actually don't have to believe in any of this to benefit from it. That you can think of the chakras as almost like a filing system for different aspects of who we are. So it's just an organizational system to look at our own stuff, right? So whether or not you feel it, whether or not you believe that there is prana or life force energy, um, I'd say it doesn't really matter that much. Can it help, like, as you go deeper? Absolutely. But I think when you're first being introduced to it, it can seem really far-fetched. I'll also say that these systems of energy are ancient and they are considered a science in other cultures. They're not necessarily considered a science in Western culture. So I think it's important to be respectful of that and to understand that they have been more or less discovered over thousands of years of observation. So although, it might be called one thing in a different culture, doesn't mean it doesn't exist and doesn't mean that it isn't like currently being studied or looked at, maybe under different names. So I think it's important to be respectful of it in that way. And again, If you think it's all BS, that's okay too.
So good.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's start maybe with your root chakra, like you were saying. How
Mhm.
maybe just quickly run through the names of the seven main ones, and let's start with how we can begin
Mhm.
to bring awareness to this part of us and integrate that into what we might be working through in our grief.
Sure. So I'll go through the seven and then I'll start with the root. So
Sure.
root chakra is at the base of the spine. Its color is red and it's associated with the earth element. We move up from there, just under the navel to the sacral chakra, and this is your center. I won't go into what the centers mean just yet, but it's connected to water and to the color orange. We go up from there to the solar plexus. It's just over the navel. Its color is yellow. It's associated with the fire element. We go up from there to the heart, and it's associated with air and with the color green. From there, the throat, and it's associated with blue and with sound. We go up to the third eye, which is one that many people have heard of before, I think, and it's indigo and associated with time and light. And the top one is called the crown, associated with violet and with space or ether. Cosmic consciousness might be another word for it. So those are the seven. Going down to the root, it is the foundation of our existence, essentially. It's our physicality, it's our feelings of safety within our own body, it's home. Uh, and I mean that in like an expansive sense, not just your home that you live in, but your body and the earth and your that feeling of centeredness or safety. It's our inner child, it's our ancestry, and I don't want to say most importantly, but I think this is very notable for it. I said its associated element is the earth. It is our connection to our planet, our home. So when you think about our individual chakra, we can also look at it on the collective, where, you know, many of us are disconnected from the earth. Many of us are disconnected from our own bodies. This stress and this trauma creates this disconnection, as well as just the pace of modern life, the way that we live our lives now, which is so different than humans used to. Um, this is your nutrition, like your food, like basically everything that keeps you alive is the root chakra. And when I think about grief, I think about often this feeling of disconnection. We all cope in really different ways, and we can receive so much what I'd call like in a hippie sense, medicine, not just in a hippie sense, but like realistically too, from the earth. So this might mean getting outside, going to the places that feel healing to you, connecting with like the dirt, and also remembering our place in like the circle of life, seeing that everything is born and everything blossoms and then everything dies and goes back to the earth. And then this cycle happens over and over and over again. So I don't know if those are tools necessarily, but I think it's important to remember that connecting to the earth and connecting to our own bodies is extremely important,
Yeah.
especially in times of turmoil or strife.
I feel as though those are the areas that I work with the most. It's really easy to listen to, like, look at all the different areas you just addressed and the way in our bodies, the way in our, even our spiritual selves that we would say, like, these are the, the blocks that we encounter when we're grieving.
Mhm.
I find in insofar as my own experience and understanding of this system works, I spend more time on root chakra and throat chakra concerns with people than anywhere else. Not being able to advocate for needs, self care,
Mhm.
self maintenance, all those things, and then going down and discerning like what those needs actually might be.
It's interesting too, I think, with this one is a lot of it seems very basic, but I think when we're grieving or stressed or whatever it might be, that the basic stuff, like we don't even think about doing it. We forget about
100%.
it. We need
Yeah.
like
I think
reminders.
when you said foundation, I'm like, that's it. It's you, those words are interchangeable, even though they mean so much, something so different. The basic needs versus the foundational needs. They're no different, but the gravitas of foundational demands attention. It demands intention, which is why I think that this framework is so powerful, because it can take us out of our analytical assessment of our grief and the way that we approach ourselves in Western culture, and really soften our approach to say, well, as a human being, as a piece of matter floating through the world, floating through space and time, how would you sustain a life? Okay, how about sacral?
Yeah, so this is our center for emotions, for creativity, for sensuality, and for like sensual joys and pleasure. So I would say one of the blockages I just see in general with people is this, I don't want to say inability to feel emotions, but it's almost like we don't know how because of the programming that we receive, that like some emotions are welcome and some are not, right? When they're actually pretty neutral information.
Yep.
Or some people say like their energy and motion. So this space is absolutely for, I think, creating more inner and outer flow by allowing ourselves to feel and move whatever is happening within us.
Mic drop. Like, that's significant. I love pointing out neutral emotions, because we talk about that a lot here too, is we vilify them because they're uncomfortable, or they cause external turmoil in relationships or in situations, instead of acknowledging what came before the emotion arrived, what brought the emotion or that energy into the space, and what can be done to identify it and allow it to soften, allow it to metabolize and move through and bring us to something new. So, solar
I love it.
plexus.
Yes, solar plexus is again above the navel. It's associated with fire. This is where our self-worth lies,
Mm.
confidence. It's where, yeah, our drive is. And yeah, it's really relationship with self. Oh, I should have said in the sacral, it's also relationship with
Mm.
others and caretaking and things like that. That can live in the heart too, but sacral I definitely associate with relationships
Mm.
and community. So solar plexus, yeah, is more like how do we feel about ourselves? And this is where like ego might live too. It's also where we hold our anger.
Mm.
And again, I think some of the old school teachings on the chakras are like, these are the, like, I don't know, an out of balance chakra has anger. I don't think that's really true. It might have anger that needs to be um, seen.
Explored. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I can see how it could be a problem if it's something we just shut down, of course. And you see people have like ulcers, they have gut problems. Like this is where, a lot of that goes to live in the body. Um, but yeah, I would say like, grief can have one questioning identity and self-worth. I think guilt is more like in the heart, but I think there could be some feelings of guilt or even shame that pop up in this particular chakra.
Mm.
Um, like, what could I have done differently?
Mm.
Or am I bad? So, like, in an intuitive sense, if I'm looking at someone else's, so many times, like, I'm getting the information that they need to have a good laugh. They need to really cry. They need to scream. You know, they need to sing. Like there are things that just need to get this energy moving in this area. And I think even approaching it from that sense of like, okay, maybe we're not going to just like go in right away and talk about our grief or talk about our sadness. We're just going to let the emotions flow first. And that kind of opens up the gates, I think, to be able to heal this
Yeah,
area and to use this area as a superpower for our healing as well.
I would entirely agree with you. I think once you encounter yourself in grief, you have to encounter first whatever emotion and nervous system state is there first. And so oftentimes people think there's nothing because it's numbness. What's present is numbness, physical and emotional. Being able to soften and warm that space allows people then to start expressing whatever it is. And it's usually really uncomfortable. And it's usually, I didn't know I was going to cry today kind of emotion. And that's, for me, such a beautiful moment because I can point to, you're opening yourself back up.
Yeah.
You survived and you were safe and you've done a really good job protecting yourself. And now we're inviting you back to the surface and back into this place where you can experience self-expression and laughter and tears. And it's going to be a challenge, but probably the most worthy challenge
Yeah.
you could take on.
I mean, I think about, attending services of a few close people in my life who have passed, and there's laughter there, right? And it, from the outside, can seem inappropriate, but that response, I think, is really important. And I even think about when I was like 19, my grandfather died at my house day after Thanksgiving of a heart attack. And he died in a different, like in our state, and he lived in a different state. We had to drive his ashes up
Yeah.
to his state, me and my mom, and I think my brother were in the car. And we're all just kind of quiet and driving. And my mom starts to notice like a lot of dust in the car, and she's kind of putting her finger on it, like, where is all this coming from? And we realize it's his ashes, like that are that are all over the car.
God.
And we are laughing so hard that we're crying because it's
Yeah.
super messed up, but like it
Yeah.
also, in some way was
It's
darkly
kind of
funny in the
hysterical.
moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And it led us to telling stories. And, like I think it's important just to not judge the feelings that are coming up and allow them to
Absolutely.
arise.
Yeah. Gosh, it makes me think about, first of all, I love that story. As someone who, my mom was cremated, my grandpa was cremated, and we released both of their ashes at the same time. The sensation of having it on your skin or
Mm.
breathing it, the idea and like the psychological part that goes along with it. Laughter might be the only response that really doesn't feel like a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking about what you said with the laughter and recognizing, I think these are the places where those platitudes come from, where we start with the belief that is solid. Laughter belongs. And we accidentally move into a space by saying, well, your person would want you to be sad. You should laugh more. Or why are you crying? You have so much to be joyful about, right? And we inadvertently transform this into a wounding statement or moving away from that holistic part because we have lost connection with um, how human and how raw you must be to be able to laugh at a funeral, to be able to laugh when you're wiping grandpa's ashes off the dash of the car.
Mm.
That's it's a visceral laughter.
Yeah.
It's very different than the social, oh, that was a really good knock knock joke, or ha, 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 I can't believe you said that in front of everybody. Uh, anyway, because that's the stuff that would immediately shut you down, being able
Mhm.
to speak or share again. Okay, how about the third eye?
Yes, the third eye is your center for your higher faculties. So that's wisdom and discernment for sure, but also of intuition. So it's being able, like, I think that the body has intuition in so many different ways, but this is like your connection to your soul in a way. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that voice inside that's quiet and kind and compassionate. And that can be really, really hard to hear, especially when we have a lot going on in the body and the mind and our lives as well. But it's extremely important.
Yeah.
In my experience, it's never wrong.
Mm.
Um, but this is also where like a sense of self-trust could live here and the solar plexus. But like you were just talking about, this judging that we do of ourselves and of how we're feeling, that could be alleviated by the sense of self-trust, like trusting that whatever is coming up is what's needed to come up, and
Yeah.
trusting also that we have an inner voice that can guide us through the next thing. We don't need to know a full like plan or strategy for getting out of this pain state that we're in, that we have like an inner compass inside of us that can
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. I feel like we could spend 20 hours on that topic. So rather than do
Mhm.
that, I'm just going to say, yes, I agree. Um, let's move to crown
Yeah.
for the sake of
So
time.
sure. So this is your connection to everything and your connection to the divine, however you would define it. And I would also say, probably for this type of work, the biggest uh, quality to cultivate through this chakra is surrender. And it's so much easier said than done. It's,
Just learn to surrender, guys. Good
yeah,
job. You've healed.
it's a lot. And also, I'll say we can't bypass the other stuff just to go straight here.
Right.
Because then it's, we're just gaslighting ourselves in a way of like, oh, just trust in God, or,
Yep.
it, everything else isn't important. Like all the other stuff is important too.
Yep.
Um, but also it's the both and, a yogic life is holding action and surrender at the same time. And for me, it's really important to hold these qualities at once, because we keep moving, we keep going, but we let go of our expectations of the outcome
Mm.
and try to develop some sense of trust that it's all working out for the highest good, even when it's really, really, really hard to feel that.
How do you see this framework fitting for someone who probably is listening and it was like every area of that it hurts, and every area I need gentle touch, attention, learning, compassion, all the things. I need all of that support. How do you see that integrating or becoming a pathway forward for someone who is not a full-time yogi, who is not even familiar with yogic principles or interested in trying yoga, but for someone who is going about their life, what would be the way that you would say, that you would invite them to try and begin asking
Yeah,
themselves some questions? Where to start with all of
sure.
this?
Um, so I'm going to put a disclaimer before this. I'm going to talk about my book, if you don't mind.
Please.
And I will also say, by sharing this, I'm not making any promises that it's going to like heal your grief, or
Right.
that you'll read this and then suddenly like everything is okay all the time. Like
Yes.
that's not the it's not the
We
purpose.
have
It's
really intelligent listeners and brilliant minds who are people. The restorative grief community is full of people who know damn well there is no easy path. And I make no promises about a quick fix,
okay.
because I've said if I find it, it's everyone's for free.
Perfect. Well, the book is called Embody Your Inner Goddess, subtitled A Guided Journey to Radical Wholeness. And in this book, we start at the root and we spend a week in each chakra. And each day we look at a different aspect of it. And
Mm.
it's not focused on grief necessarily. It's more holistic than that. Um, but it really is an invitation to look at all of these different parts of yourself, and not because we need to change them or improve them necessarily, although maybe some like, you know, self-love fueled improvements might come over time. But it's really a way to like examine all these different parts of ourselves and love on them, and to see ourselves as whole. Because I think whether you're grieving or not, most of us walk around feeling like there is a hole inside of us, and
Yeah.
it can or needs to be filled by something, by the next relationship, or even food, or TV, or the next product to buy. And it's a really sad way, I think, to be in this world. And it's very empowering to realize, like, no, I'm actually whole. I might feel broken right now, but who I am as a person and as a soul is whole. Because I'm human, I'm going to forget that. I'm going to forget it over and over. But there's always an opportunity to journey home, back to
Mm.
yourself. And I hope that by providing daily readings and reflection, so journaling questions, and then some sort of like action item, which is an embodiment practice, that people can start to like feel this in their own being, in their own body. Um, so I'd say that's one way to work with it. I'd also say figuring out like what your strength is, like which one is the strongest right now, and you can use that to fuel and heal the others. So typically for me, and I see this in a lot of people, but I think my heart is my strongest one. It's, I think, where I have the most direct access. And even if I'm heartbroken, I can do practices that like start to open that up. So if I'm needing to send love from the heart or compassion to these other areas of myself, um, then that's what I'm going to do. And it doesn't have to be the heart. It can be a different chakra, but I think it's important to like figure out like where are my strengths and then
Yeah.
use that instead of just looking at like what needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Perfect answer. I love that. I think I can't wait to read your book myself. I think that sounds brilliant. And I love the gentle and invitational way you've structured it, because that approach to the self is so important, to be
Thank
gentle
you.
and to be curious.
I agree. I'll add as well that it can be very confronting.
Oh,
There's a
100%.
lot, there's a lot. And I definitely recommend that people don't go it alone. It's
Yeah.
something that you can do alone, but you know, if it stirs something up, like there's nothing wrong with hiring a therapist or a
Yeah.
coach. If it stirs something up, there's nothing wrong with calling a friend. I definitely recommend people do this like with a group or with a friend so that you have someone to talk to during this process. Because
Yeah.
for me, writing it brought a lot up. I'm sharing
Yeah.
parts of my own story. Um, and while some of the days like I read and I'm like, oh, that feels so good. Some of the days I'm like, oh, that
Yes.
again.
Oh man, I had this similar experience writing my book a few years ago. It's also a workbook and guide through loss.
Mm.
And same thing. I'll read it every now and then or be working through a section in my own life, going back through it and feel very like confident and articulate and connected and grounded. And then other days I'll say, wow, that was the meanest thing I've ever done to myself. Rereading that and noticing how much work I still want to do in that area and feeling very vulnerable about it all. And so that's a beautiful encouragement to remain in connection with others. And I think that that's exactly it with grief work too, is we isolate out of fear of judgment, out of rejection, out of fear of, well, out of shame that we're not enough, that we're not uh, progressing at a pace that feels like something to celebrate. When the reality is, if we bring any level of awareness to what we're experiencing as a human being and meet that with compassion, with love, with curiosity, that is progression, that is healing, and that is the most important uh, part of all of this, is really changing the idea of what healing looks like and how we continue to participate in it every day. So
Just wanted to thank you for the work you're doing, and just a little like sideline too, like support like this is so needed. And I look at this as the root chakra, like, we have ancestry and we have cultures that we've come from, but especially like in the US, so many of us are cut off from that. And we don't have these communal ways to grieve that we used to have. So of course we don't know what to do. And of course we make things bad and wrong because we're going it alone. Um, so having people like you to like normalize all of this and to hold space and to give people strategies to do this thing that's really hard to do and that we've lost our connection to, and that we don't even want to talk about. Like our culture doesn't even want to talk about death,
Yeah.
you know. It's I think it's very beautiful. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. It has been the joy and the most difficult challenge in my life to do this work, but it genuinely, I've never felt more grounded and connected to my own humanity, but even just people around me than when I've been doing this grief work with people. So yeah, I'm glad. Thank you. And thank you again for making space for being here. And see, I knew you'd be the right guest for this show and you'd be perfect for it. So in the show notes, everybody, you'll be able to find the link for Lauren's book and ways to connect with you and just see what work you're doing. Just want to honor the work that you're doing as well. I think it's really difficult to stay soft and to stay grounded and centered when the world around you wants you to toughen up, like you're saying, with lean into the masculine side that makes it easy to just kind of shut down and barrel your way through. So that sacred feminine and that radical idea of radical wholeness is such an invitational approach, such an invitation to anyone, not just women, like you said. So thank you for what you're doing. And I'm so excited to learn more.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you for listening to episode 113 of Restorative Grief. I hope you can heed and receive the invitation in our chat today. Lauren's gentle approach to holistic healing allows us as grievers to acknowledge that what we walk through is not easy, but it's also not foreign. Grief has been a part of humanity's life experience since the beginning. And the more insight and wisdom we can access, the more we will uncover the depth and the healing possibility of our grief experience. It is here that we begin to find a meaningful pathway forward. If this is your first time listening to the show, I'm so grateful that you're here. I know this conversation may have been a little different than what you were expecting, or perhaps that's exactly what you wanted. Wherever you fall in the spectrum of expectations, I hope you'll share this with a friend and begin to ask yourself some of the questions we presented. You can connect with Lauren online or order a copy of her book through the links in the show notes. And as always, I would love for you to leave a review and connect with me on social media platforms of your choice. I'm there at Mandy Capehart on almost all of them. I love hearing how these conversations impact you and learning more about your story and what you might need for your own meaningful grief support. Thank you again for being here. And before I go, as always, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.